The Middle Ages weren't just knights, castles, and battles. It was an entire economic system that lasted for nearly 1,000 years. Imagine a world where money barely existed, where land, not gold, was the real source of power, where the economy ran not on banks or factories, but on peasants working the fields. So how did this world function? What kept the medieval economy alive? And how did it begin to change? Let's break it down. In the Middle Ages, land wasn't just property, it was everything. Power, wealth, status, even military strength all came from owning land. The king granted land to powerful nobles. Those nobles passed it down to their vassals. And at the very bottom were the peasants, the people who actually worked the soil. Most peasants weren't free. They couldn't simply pack up and leave. They were tied to the land they worked. Instead of earning wages, they paid their lord with labor and harvests. They plowed his fields, repaired his roads, brought him food, and worked several days a week for free. This was the backbone of medieval economics, a system where people paid not with money but with work. A medieval manor functioned like a small, isolated country. It had its own fields, pastures, forests, mills, workshops, and storage barns. Everything a community needed, from bread to tools, was produced inside the manor itself. Trade was minimal, and money was rarely used. This closed, self-sustaining system is why the feudal economy survived for centuries. After centuries of decline, Europe began to change. Population grew, trade revived, and small settlements slowly turned into towns. Towns brought something the feudal world lacked: freedom. People here weren't tied to the land. They could work, trade, and earn money on their own terms. Inside these towns lived craftsmen, blacksmiths, weavers, carpenters, potters. They made everything the rural world couldn't produce, but they didn't work alone. Craftsmen organized themselves into guilds, powerful organizations that controlled every part of the trade. Guilds decided who could become a master, what prices were allowed, and what quality every product had to meet. In many towns, guilds were stronger than the local government. As towns expanded, money flowed back into the economy. Markets and annual fairs became huge economic events, places where merchants from different countries met to trade goods, negotiate deals, and build networks. Towns created a new kind of wealth, profit from trade and craftsmanship, not land. This was the beginning of a money-driven economy, and it changed Europe forever. While most villagers lived their whole lives within a few miles of home, merchants crossed seas and continents. In the Mediterranean, cities like Venice and Genoa became economic superpowers. Their ships brought in spices, silk, glass, precious metals, goods from the Middle East, North Africa, and even Asia. These luxury items were rare, expensive, and incredibly profitable. Controlling these routes meant controlling the wealth of the region forever. Far to the north, another trading empire was rising, the Hanseatic League. It wasn't a country, but a network of 200 towns along the Baltic and North Sea. They dominated trade in fur, wax, timber, fish, grains, the essential goods of medieval life. Their merchants traveled from England to Russia, protected by their own fleets, rules, and alliances. For centuries, the Hanseatic League controlled the northern economy like a corporation with its own navy. Beyond Europe, a massive web of land routes connected the west to China, the Silk Road. Caravans carried silk, paper, gunpowder, gemstones, spices, and knowledge across deserts and mountains. The journey was long and dangerous, but the profits were enormous. Thanks to these global routes, medieval Europe was far more connected than we imagine. Ideas, technologies, and wealth flowed across continents, shaping the world that would come next. In the Middle Ages, the church wasn't just a spiritual authority, it was one of the largest landowners in Europe. Monasteries, abbeys, bishops, and cathedral chapters controlled vast estates. Peasants living on church lands owed rent, labor, and a tenth of their harvest, the famous tithe. This made the church a massive economic force, with wealth flowing in from every village and every field. Monasteries were more than religious communities. They were economic engines. Monks ran vineyards, breweries, farms, mills, workshops, and orchards. They produced wine, cheese, beer, manuscripts, metal tools, and medicines. Some monasteries became so wealthy and efficient that kings borrowed money from them. While Europe struggled through wars and crises, monasteries preserved skills and knowledge. They copied books, kept records, studied agriculture, and introduced new farming techniques, water mills, improved plows, crop rotation. Many innovations spread through monastic networks. In a world with little education, the church became the closest thing to a research and development center. By the late Middle Ages, Europe was transforming. Towns were richer, trade was global, and merchants needed safer, faster ways to move money. Carrying bags of silver across borders was risky. Thieves, storms, and corrupt officials could ruin everything. So merchants began using a new solution: paper promises, credit, and financial contracts. That's when powerful banking families emerged. Names like the Medici in Italy and the Fuggers in Germany. They didn't just lend money to traders, they financed kings, funded wars, backed explorers, and shaped the politics of Europe. For the first time, a banker could be more powerful than a noble. Medieval bankers invented tools we still use today: bills of exchange, early checks that allowed merchants to travel without money, credit, money borrowed for trade or war, currency exchange, converting one region's money into another's, account books and double-entry bookkeeping, the basis of modern accounting. This financial revolution marked the end of the old feudal economy and the birth of something new: early capitalism. For centuries, the medieval economy survived on three pillars: the land of the feudal lords, the crafts and markets of the growing towns, and the great trade routes that connected Europe to the world. From a world where most people never touched a coin, to an economy driven by merchants, banks, and global commerce, the Middle Ages transformed Europe in ways few could have imagined. And out of this slow, steady evolution came the foundation of the modern world: new technologies, new cities, new financial systems, and the rise of early capitalism. The medieval economy didn't just survive, it built the world we live in today. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the medieval economy. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Your support helps bring more history to life. See you in the next episode.